Trying hard just to make a selection. I gotta run, gotta break these eyes. Break it outside, set on the horizon. No second chance gonna pass me by. Heading out in the right direction. Hit it hard, looking deep inside. Standing tall, I don't need protection. Silent control for one last time. A process of evolution. Is leading who? Yeah, who is leading you? So who?
Welcome to Sao Paulo, Brazil, home of Interlagos, or Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace. This is one of the most storied Grand Prix tracks, not just in Formula One, but in the world. It's played host to some incredible races, and it plays host to the fourth round of the 11th season of the Alpha Touring Challenge. Welcome to the fourth round. It is a 60-minute race. We have 2 pit stops lined up today. The grid is set up there. We don't have time to run through them today, but we will run through this track. Interlagos, constructed back in the 1930s. It's seen some incredible moments happen, including Lewis Hamilton winning the 2008 F1 Championship at the last moment. Maybe we'll see a classic moment like that here today. Michael Polasek and the Yellow Flag Motorsport crew are on pole on the front row. What can they do today in a 1-hour race? They are ready to go. Let's go down to the track. we wait for the cars to grid, let's take a look at our starting lineup for today's race. "31 cars set up and ready to hit the track at Interlagos, a 60-minute race. Michael Polasek ready to lead us off from the Alpha pole. Evan Clavijo starting from 8th in the Delta pole. It's time to go. We await the green lights. And they are away. Michael Polasek gets a good start. McKenzie trying to stay ahead of Zepka down into turn number 1. They will go wheel to wheel. 2, 3 wide behind, battling for 3rd, 4th, 5th on down. And through the Senna S they go. Oh, and a couple of issues there. A couple of cars around as they come down the Senna S. And now it's a giant mess as these guys all file out. Coming down on the run to turn number 4. And look at how many drivers. There's a couple more in the background. I see Adrian Fedorowski and Micah Hendricks getting involved. Hendricks had a bad qualifying performance, and that has just bit him. Now look at this group of cars back here. Just stacked up, running through turn 4, and they all managed to get through there okay. Now the run up to turn 6, it's Polasek, McKenzie, Zepka, Bauer, Lazan, then Schink, and now look at this, 2 SRG, that's a Damon Mitchell making a move on Kevin Clark going up that corner, and now we're looking at turn 8, Kevin Clark on the outside, trying to hold in front of Brandon Dreyer. There's still 2 by 2 through these sections. The Delta battles are crazy. Kevin Clark and Dreyer going wheel to wheel through those turns. Clavijo staying ahead of Brian Son, but Jacob Wiley has jumped out to an early Delta lead. Clavijo only loses 1 position on the start. It's Wiley with an amazing jump, several position gain there at the start of the race. And into the final corner now, the field starting to finally calm down a little bit. And up through the final corner, it is Michael Polasek in the lead with McKenzie, Zepka, Bauer, Lazan, Schink, Fernandez, Wiley, Clavijo, and Son. That is your top 10. We will take a close look at Kevin Clark coming down the straightaway. He's running ahead of Brandon Dreyer, trying to keep him behind. He will. I see Anthony Harrison down there. Kyle Murray going for a move on his teammate. And that's Brian Saab holding it around the outside. Jason Lynn gathers up a slide and keeps it ahead of Jimmy John right there. Jimmy John trying to kick it around the outside, but nowhere to really go there. And behind them, it's August Blondal working on both those guys coming down the straightaway to turn 4. And he's not going to be able to go for a move there, so we'll jump up to the front of the field where Jason Breen and Christian Ost are going wheel to wheel up to turn 6. Breen on the inside. It's Yart versus Complex Simworks, and Yart's got the preferred line into the next corner. You see Damon Mitchell and Brian Son battling up ahead as well. Son's going to have that left side line, but I think Mitchell's got it right here. Ost is finally going to have a nice little run on Breen, but can he hold it down in the next corner? No, Breen's got him, and this is a right-hander, so he may be able to hold this. And he does, and just behind, oh no, a bit of a problem. That is Kyle Murray and Brian Saab coming together. A lot of action further down in the field at the start of this race thus far. And we got a car off. That's Kevin Clark with a bad exit. And that's going to expose him. He loses out to Dreyer.
And now he's just trying to keep Anthony Harrison back there as well. We are now 3 laps into this race. McKenzie 3/10 off of Polasek. Then it's Zepka, Bauer, Lazan. The Delta leader, Jacob Wiley, is just ahead of Evan Clavijo. And those two are starting to run away from the rest of the Delta field. That's a 2.4-second gap. From then on back to the next car. And the next car is not even a Delta driver. It's Damon Mitchell. And he's having a bit of a scrap with Brian Son. He's managed to get ahead of him, maybe for good for now. 4 minutes into this hour-long race. There will be 2 pit stops, so lots of chances for these guys to pick up repairs, get some strategy moves going. And behind, Clark and Dreyer going at it again, and Anthony Harrison's going to just be looking, where can he go for a move? Clark's going to lose out a little bit here, so Harrison's going to stick his nose up here, say, thank you very much, Brandon. I'll take that as well. But if he can't finish it off here, Kevin's going to have the preferred line, but he won't. And now Jason Breen is next up, trying to get around that Honda. Harrison, ooh, a little crossover there. Look at that. He faked outside, went in on Dreyer. Oh, but Dreyer has held it enough to have the inside line to the next 2 corners. And Harrison going very wide there. Not a whole lot of grip on the right side of the track. Dreyer goes through, but another crossover. And Harrison will again have a chance to do something with Breyer, and Clark's going to follow him through. Will he give him a little bump draft down the straightaway, or will he try and make it 3 wide? Here we go, down to turn number 1, on the back of Harrison. Look at this, they're still alongside Dreyer, down to turn 1, Breen and Ost behind, waiting to pick up the pieces of whatever happens here. And they're going to be 2 by 2 into the Senna S. Ost right on the back of Clark. Harrison just cuts ahead of Dreyer. Breen a little off track. That's going to allow Clark through, and Ost on the back of him. And now Spencer Clark has joined this battle. Ost trying to keep one Clark behind while keeping another in his sights ahead. And he manages to convince him to stay back there as they roll through turn 4. Further back, Brian Saab, Mark Darnell, and James Carr. James Carr qualifying in 10th. Ends up demoted to 21st. Not long after the start of this one. Front right damage, rear damage. He's going to need some repairs the first time they come into the pits. But he's limping around a bit there. And in that same vein, another Alpha Championship contender, Micah Hendricks, involved with Adrian Fedorowski on lap 1. He qualified in 26th, and he ends up in a wreck on lap 1. So Polasek and McKenzie have a bit of room to play with here. Carr looking, he went for an inside move on Saab, but loses out on the next corner. Now heading down to the final corner of the circuit. He's just trying to keep a nose in and compromise Saab's line. He'll succeed in doing so, and he'll get the little crossover move. And now let's see how much that damage actually affects him as they come up the straightaway. Is he down on any kind of straight line speed? And he might be. The 52's starting to pull on towards turn 1, and now he's in danger of losing out to Jason Lynn actually down the straightaway. And that car's struggling. He's going to dive in with the nose. Oh, a little bit of contact. They managed to keep it together. Lynn backs off, gives them the space, and Saab really holding on to this 20th position. This is 10th in class. And kind of sitting there waiting to see if Carr will do it again. We'll look up here to Anthony Harrison. He's still leading this group of 6 Delta drivers. That's Brandon Dreyer in 4th in the Delta class on down. The top 3 are a little further up. It's Wiley, it's Clavijo, and then Son that have separated themselves from the rest of the Delta group. And in the Alpha lead, Michael Polasek starting to edge a little bit further ahead of McKenzie. McKenzie was keeping up with him the first 4 laps, but on this 5th lap, he's gone a little bit faster. He was a 10th quicker than McKenzie in the last sector. And now coming off this final corner, it's going to be 0.6 of a second gap. And now Jacob Welly and Evan Clavijo going side by side. Something has happened that slowed both of these guys down and has brought them back to Damon Mitchell. Or Wiley was 1 second ahead of Clavijo. Maybe he made a mistake earlier in the lap. He was 0.3 of a second slower in sectors 3 and 4. And now on to the next lap. Damon Mitchell trying to get into this fight and maybe a battle for the Delta lead, but it's only 9 minutes in, and Mitchell's looking for whatever points he can get. Now he's separated Clavijo completely off of Jacob Wiley. That's what he wants to. That's what Wiley wants to see. No move from Mitchell there. Looking up at Brandon Dreyer, he has gotten ahead of Anthony Harrison and leads this little field now. And look at Spencer Clark. We'll go on board with him. He's in the middle of this huge group of cars. Difficult to pass here, difficult to get overtakes done. Mitchell has gotten it done, though. That's Damon Mitchell on Clavijo for the 9th position, and now he's going to go hunt down the Delta leader and try and pick those points off, too. Clavijo's nursing, I think, a little bit of right front damage. Yes, a little bit. He'll be able to get that repaired on his first stop in. And checking out Jason Breen, he was working on the outside of Spencer Clark. But Clark's going to stay ahead. That's the battle for 7th in class. They lose a little bit of ground to that group of 4 in front. And a little further in front, we haven't talked much about P3, P4, P5, but they're all closed up quite a bit. Well, P4, P5, P6. They're all trying to catch Matt Zepka. So Zepka in 3rd right there, sitting in that podium spot. Anthony Harrison is the first car to come down pit road. He'll get that damage repaired. And trying to get into some clean air out of the Delta traffic. Bauer is running in 4th. Lazan and Schink right behind him. And then it's 1.2 seconds up to Matt Zepka. Zepka's been there since the start of the race. Both Lazan and Bauer gained 2 spots at the start. And part of that was, I believe, Augustine had a bad start. He's currently running in 7th. Might have a little rear end damage to that Elantra. Oh, definitely some left rear and definitely some center rear. Someone came right up under the back of that thing. Running 7th in his first Alpha Touring Challenge start. He's a great face to see on the grid and doing well. 7th overall thus far. Michael Polasek just set another purple lap. He has now separated from McKenzie. 1.2 second gap between the two Yellow Flag Motorsports drivers. And now Spencer Clark trying to get in on Christian Ost. Sees an opening. And he might try and get him heading into the final corner here. He got a nice run down the hill, but nothing doing there. We're seeing this a lot where guys are able to get onto the right side of their opponents coming out of that corner. But then through the last 2 corners before the straightaway, they're stuck on the outside and can't do anything. We'll go on board with Clark. Surely he's going to look for something here. You can imagine Ost is going to hold the inside. Not a whole lot of slipstream on this track. He's going to have to send it. And he's going to back out. Thinks better of it. And Clark stays there in the 15th position. Further back, Brandon Shelton and Jimmy John going at it for the 23rd position. This is 13th in the Delta class, and Shelton is through on John. But it's not quite over yet. Elantra versus Honda Power here, and Jimmy John had a good run out of the Senna S, and he's going to take a look heading down to turn 4. Is that a move he can pull off? Well, he's certainly going to put his car there. Holds the inside. Shelton gives him the space. And I think he's going to pull this one off just ahead of the Elantra. Tries to cut ahead and finds that there's a car there, but I think now he's got it. Misses the apex, though, and Shelton gets back in. And he'll have him into the next corner. A great little piece of battling from those two. And Shelton is up to 23rd. And now look at this. Damon Mitchell has caught up to Jacob Wiley, and he has passed the Delta leader. So that is a position for the SRG driver. Lazan and Schink might be about to go at it. Schink has been edging closer to the B4D driver this whole race. And he is going to take a look into turn 1. Forces him off that apex. Down the center S. Oh, Bauer gets a bad run. He misses the apex, stacks them up, and now they're all on top of each other. Lazan's going to lose out. Schink goes through, and now he's really close to Bauer. This may be a 2-for-1 B4D deal if he can finish this off on this lap. But Lazan loses out there, and Fernandez gains a little bit of time on all of them through that. And Schink can't do anything there. Wiley might try to do something here with Mitchell. If you're Jacob Wiley, I think if you think Damon is faster than you, you let him go. Every position is worth points, but he is in a different class, and everyone else in Wiley's class is behind him. And Brian Son and Evan Clavijo, speaking of behind him, they are losing time to him, battling for second in the Delta class, and Son's gonna get it. Clavijo nursing some damage, slipping further back into this Delta field, and this is looking good for Brian Son because he's worked his way up from 15th overall to a top 10 in this race thus far. 15 minutes in. We didn't talk about how James Carr came down pit road. So he and Anthony Harrison have pitted. And they are the only two cars that have made a scheduled pit stop thus far in this race. Adrian Fedorowski out of this race after the incident on lap 1 with Micah Hendricks. The Magnificent on his return out after a lap 1 incident. That was part of that incident we saw at the bottom of the Senna S on lap 1. Do we have any takers for pit lane? We won't see. Most people are not going to come into the pits for another 5 to 10 minutes. Clavijo is going to try and take P2 back. They're already 3 seconds off the Delta leader. It's a big squeeze from Son, and this is going to help Brandon Dreyer come around the outside. Clavijo goes through as Son is careful on the brakes. Dreyer had a look, couldn't do anything. Ost is behind, battling with Clark. Stays ahead. Clark pushing him through turn 4, but Breen has the run on the outside. It's wheel to wheel for the Elantra drivers, and that is exactly what Ost wants to see. Clark's going to send it back up the inside, and Breen can't do anything but give him the space. And they leave each other plenty of racing room coming out of that corner, and now Ost is going to pull a little bit away as these two continue to fight. Clavijo and Son are also fighting. There's a ton of battling up and down the Delta field. And look at this, a little crossover. He tucked just in front of Dreyer. Not able to do anything with it, though. So we go back to Spencer Clark, who loses out to Jason Breen, but keeps his nose in. And through the next corner, he's going to stay wheel to wheel. Christian Ost loving what he is seeing in his rear view as Breen goes for it again. Clark's going to have a nice run out of this corner, though, and I think he's probably going to hold the position as they come down through this corner. Yes, and behind it's Murray and Darnell going side by side in the Hondas. And the final corner before the turn up to the straightaway. Clark goes wide. Murray goes a little wide, so Breen's going to go through, and Murray is going to go through. After all that fighting, the lead cars kind of mess up their exits onto the straightaway, and that yields back the positions, though Murray is close enough here to do something, and Spencer Clark's going to come back at Breen as well. So once again, it's battling. Clark goes through. Darnell also able to finish it off. So we'll jump back up here. David Bauer is still leading Schink and Lazan by 4/10. Fernandez is hanging on the back of this group. Hasn't made any inroads yet. He's been going about the same pace as them. Was a bit faster on the last lap by nearly half a second. So he is gaining. Schink probably knows if they fight at all, they're going to start to pull that 9.56 back into this battle. Brandon Shelton pulled into the pits, so he takes his scheduled pit stop. Going back up to Brandon Dreyer. We'll go on board with him. He's had an exciting race thus far, to say the least. Sitting fourth in class. He is very well on for a podium here. He just needs one of these guys to make a mistake, something he can take advantage of. He tried it around the outside earlier. It was a good move, it was a good attempt, but it didn't work out there. And now 19 minutes into this race, almost a third of the way through, and there's quite a distinct gap between the top 7 drivers and everybody else, really. I mean, you have the 7 Alpha drivers up front, then you have Damon Mitchell and Jacob Wiley, and then you have 10th through 18th in their own little pack. And this is where the majority of the fighting has happened. This is definitely the most strung out that the cars have gotten all season, and it's giving these guys a lot of space to work out pit strategies. A lot of space to battle as well. August Blondal down pit road now. That is scheduled. Jimmy John also coming down pit lane to get serviced by his crew. Michael Polasek with a 2.6 second lead over Logan McKenzie thus far in this race. He was 0.2 faster than him. He was 0.5 faster than him on the last lap. These last couple of laps have been really devastating for that gap. He's pulled it out on McKenzie very quickly. It's going to help him a lot as they come into the pit window. On board with Francois Schink as he runs in 5th. He's just trying to get around Bauer so that he can get up to his teammate, Matt Zepka, and get into a little scrap with him for the podium. And meanwhile, Zepka, his whole focus right now is, these guys up front. They're 5 seconds up, 2 seconds back. You got to set the gap and hold the position. Bauer defends to the inside, Schink to the outside. And he gets very far alongside through the first part of the Senna S. Now out of the corner. Look at this. They managed to hold it wheel to wheel the whole way through. And Lazan's going to try and take advantage of this. But Schink gets a good run out of the corner. And now they are all tied up with each other. Down to turn 4. Lazan backs out. You've got a car that's coming out of pit road ahead. That's Jimmy John. And I think they're all kind of tucking in as he lets them through. Schink's got a good run here. He may do something. Oh, he's going to push him, and now he's going to go for it. You don't see moves here very often. Bauer's got to give him the space. It's going to be very awkward, but he manages to pull the car back to the apex. He's done a good job of gathering that one up, but now a huge send by Schink. And that is an impressive move as he holds that. But even more impressive is how Bauer carries the momentum around the outside despite the interference and stays ahead of Schink. Oh, and then a little nudge from Schink. A bump and run. And he just peeks ahead of David Bauer. And this is going to get scrappy. Through the final corner, Bauer's not going to like how that one went down right into the back bumper of Schink. He lays into him. Oh, but unfortunately, Bauer with a bad exit, and Lazan's going to go through. And that is that's just some short track racing right there. And now Schink's going to come. They're all going to come down pit road. Oh, but they're not actually. The camera angle just made it look like it was. I don't think we've seen that angle yet. But Schink through, and no, none of the leaders have chosen to pit yet. You see a 4OG's car coming off pit lane right there. That is Brian Ballard. And he'll go ahead and let these guys through as they run off and do another lap. The Delta class, the Delta field has calmed down a little bit. Wiley's just been hanging on to the back of Mitchell. This entire group has just come onto pit lane. Clarkson, Breen, Murray, Lynn. Let's see who comes out first here. You got 5 cars on pit lane. They were all running very close to each other. Brandon Dreyer, Evan Clavijo, Christian Ost, Spencer Clark, they stay out. Clark jumps Brian Sullen in the pits. Breen very close. Murray will come out behind all of them. And now these guys battling to see who gets to go into pit road first, costing themselves time against those guys who just pitted, but at the same time, very valuable to be the car that gets onto pit lane first. You basically have an automatic, it's track position. It's so important. On pit exit, Breen putting Brian Son under pressure. Doesn't do anything to turn 4. John Luzon under pressure from David Bauer as they come up the straightaway. Polasek is on the pit lane. McKenzie's on pit lane. And I think everybody will be coming down this time. Schink, Luzon, Bauer. Here comes Mitchell. Here come the Delta leaders. Jacob Wiley, a 4-second gap ahead of his next Delta rival. And he will pull in. But Wiley stays out. He has saved a lap of fuel. That's what he was doing, hanging out behind Damon Mitchell. And a nice little strategy to gain some extra time, perhaps. And Wiley will go through while the rest pit. And this is going to be a battle for position here as Wiley comes out very close to one of the race leaders. That is Logan McKenzie. And he comes out ahead of him. So that's going to slow McKenzie down a little bit. But for Wiley, he's just kind of, you kind of have to hope that McKenzie doesn't battle him too much because that could cost him time. Clavijo out of pit lane now. Mitchell off pit lane. Saab, Ost, all those guys. So now we're just waiting to see where Jacob Wiley comes out in relation to all of them. Still is the Delta leader. We're 25 minutes into this one. We'll probably see the next round of pit stops with about 50 minutes to go. And McKenzie sticking nose up there, but then backs off. And, it's just kind of difficult to finish a pass through these corners. You cost yourself so much time going 2 by 2. And now Wiley is going to hold him back there the whole lap. That's good for him. And now we're going to look back to Evan Clavijo. And not just Evan Clavijo, but Brian Son keeping Jason Breen back there. Holding inside line there. Wiley, if he had gotten out ahead of Polasek, he would have picked up a bonus point for laps led. He just needed to be a little bit closer. Could have been a very nice get as a Delta driver. But as it stands, into the pit lane he goes. Clavijo, go on board with him now. Out of the final corner. Wiley has not reached his pit stall yet. He is stopped now. The pit stops take about 15 seconds, so the clock has started. 10 seconds before he pulls out of his stall. And Clavijo burning down the front straightaway as Wiley pulls out of his pit box. There's Clavijo. It's going to be close. I think Clavijo is probably going to be 2 or 3 seconds off. He may have gained some time on Wiley. Let's see what the gap is when they come out. He's definitely gained time. Wiley loses almost 3 full seconds to Clavijo in pit lane, and now the race for the Delta lead is very much on. So what happened there? Well, Clavijo had a longer pit stop. It was 4/10 longer than Wiley. So where did Wiley lose the time? On pit lane, Evan Clavijo spent 35.4 seconds on pit lane. Jacob Wiley spent 38.1 seconds on pit lane. It just took him too long to pull into the box. Maybe he missed the box. We didn't see that. That could explain the long pit lane time, because Wiley has the longest pit road time of anybody in the top 16 cars. The only car with a longer pit lane time in the top 25 is Brian Son, and we saw him drop a couple positions on pit road. So some shuffling on pit lane of positions in the Delta class turns this into a more interesting race for the battle for the lead and for the podium spots, because now Brian Son has been demoted all the way back to Delta P8. and he is 5 seconds off of these guys. Saab, Clark, and Clark are now the 3 cars in the mix for the podium, with Christian Ost lurking in the background. They go a little bit slow into turn 1 there, and the Clark stacking up, trying to set up a good exit, get around Saab. We saw Jason Breen came out of the pits ahead of Brian Saab, but both of them a bit far off the guys behind. Oh, not Kyle Murray. Mark Darnell, he's got an issue. He's got damage, serious damage to the left front of that car. We saw him going wide in the background. That was him trying to make the corner and missing, and he is out of this race. He was running in the top 10 in the Delta class for pretty much the whole day. We didn't see how that damage happened. If I had to guess, based on it being left front damage, he came through turn 1, got to the bottom of the Senna S, and overcooked it and slammed into that inside wall on turn 3. And then we saw him come on screen immediately afterward, trying to make the turn, and the car was just broken. We're looking at John Lazon now. He came out of the pits in no man's land, running in 6th. James Carr is in 7th. David Bauer in 5th. So the B4D guys all back to back to back. We have another car that's out now. Augustin Fernandez never came into pit, retired just before the pit cycle started. So not sure what happened there, but an unfortunate end to Fernandez's first start in the Alpha Touring Challenge. Going back to the battle for P3 of the Delta class, Spencer Clark staying behind in turn 1. We're seeing these guys be a little apprehensive about sending it into turn 1. It can be difficult to see where your opponent is, and it can be difficult to put the trust in them to not run you out of track when you get to the bottom of the Senna S. So it takes a lot of bravery and the right kind of run and angle to make that kind of move. Checking back in on Anthony Harrison. He got that front end damage repaired, and he came out ahead of Damon Mitchell. Although Harrison short pitted. Harrison's going to have to pit. He will have to make 3 pit stops in this race, because he pitted on lap 6. That's why he's ahead of Damon Mitchell, is he put much less fuel in the car, and I don't think it's going to be enough to do a 2-stopper. I think he's going to have to 3-stop this thing. So a very thin Alpha field this evening, actually. A few drivers missing from some of the top teams, and it's resulted in a very Delta-dominated race, and I think it's better for it, because we're seeing Clavijo close up on Wiley now that he's within range. But in terms of like top Alpha drivers, I mean, Polasek and McKenzie, they've dominated the season week in and week out. They have alternated winning every single one of these races. But outside of them, Hendricks not out, but down in 21st. Darnell out, Fernandez out, Slug out. You have Bertolucci and McFarland not here. So SRG not earning a whole lot of points. There's a few people missing. So it's a chance for big points if you're in the Delta class. I mean, these guys, the Delta winner is going to get top 10 points here based on how the field is shaking out right now. You know, I don't think another Alpha driver is going to slot up in there. It would only be Micah Hendricks. There's only 10 left. So this is big points for all these guys, and they all know how big of an opportunity it is. It's an Alpha challenge. It's a 1-hour race. The points aren't split up like in the sprint format where there's 2 of them. It's all one big bag that you can get. And now halfway through this one, Jacob Wiley's currently holding that bag. Clavijo and Wiley actually did the exact same lap time on the previous lap. Spencer Clark a half second off of that lap time, but he did go around Brian Saab. That probably played into it. And now Clark has gotten ahead of the 3 Hondas. And he's trying to catch up to the leaders and make it a three-way fight for the Delta lead. There's a whole nother pit stop that we're waiting on, so still a lot that could happen in this one. Clark and Ost, you got to imagine both of them will probably be thinking, yeah, Saab's losing the gap to Clark a little, so I think I need to go for a move. And go for a move is what Brian Saab looked like he may have been expecting there, but nothing out of Kevin Clark or Christian Ost. We'll jump back to the leaders real quick and just run through this race. McKenzie, 6.5 seconds off of Michael Polasek, who has showed up and has made himself one of essentially two championship favorites right now, the other being his teammate, McKenzie. Hendricks, Carr, Schink, they're all just a bit further off this season. I mean, it has been nothing but 1-2 finishes for Polasek and McKenzie through and through. It looks like another one is on the cards today, but Polasek especially showing some really just class pace. And in the Veloster, a car that has historically not, it's been underutilized in this series. The only other drivers that have ever seen any real success with it are Micah Hendricks and Francois Schink. Jacob Wiley and Evan Clavijo, while we were checking in on Polasek, not only were they side by side, but I see some rear end damage to Jacob Wiley's car. I see some front end damage to Evan Clavijo's car. I think the Delta leaders have had a little scrap. So we're going to stay here because there's not a whole lot going on in the Alpha class. We could go down the order, but if these guys are going to scrap, let's stay here. Let's get into it. Anthony Harrison now comes down pit road. Ooh, look at this. Wiley and Clavijo are on pit lane. These are early stops, and they have both done it at the same time. I wonder if Clavijo pitting just because Wiley is, but now they're on pit lane. It's Spencer Clark promoted into the Delta lead. There's another factor in this. They both might be thinking, I got a lot of damage from that. Let me pit and fix it. Wiley is out. Clavijo is not. Clavijo, his pit stop takes 3 more seconds than Jacob Wiley's. What is happening here? Okay, so both of them, Clavijo already used his fast repair. So Clavijo doesn't get the damage repaired, but he fuels up for the rest of the race. Wiley presumably has fueled up for the rest of the race as well, but both of them they put in vastly different amounts of fuel. And Clavijo is now 10 seconds off of the B4D driver. So I don't know if Wiley's underfueled or Clavijo's overfueled, but Spencer Clark is the winner of this, and this is perfect for him. He gets to the front of this mid pack and then immediately pulls a gap. He's got nearly 2 seconds to Brian Saab behind. The two cars in front get together, a little bit of damage. They come down pit road. Looks like Kevin Clark may have gotten a bad run off of the corner, and Christian Ost on the left side. I think he's cleared him, and he has, right in front of him as they go into corner entry. He just wanted to be sure. He's just double checking. Now he can go after Saab. Further back in the pack, teammates Micah Hendricks and August Blondahl of Croc Hunters. Hendricks went past Clavijo when Clavijo pitted, and Hendricks also passed Shelton earlier. And now he's working on his teammate. And Clavijo's race for the lead is done. He has come down pit road, and he has not stopped. That is a drive-through penalty. And I'm going to take a wild guess and say that he probably sped coming onto pit road when he and Jacob Wiley came down. And he would have known that as he was coming to his stall, which probably affected how much fuel he put in the car. But either way, Clavijo now out of the battle for the Delta lead. We look to Spencer Clark. We look to Jacob Wiley, because those are the two names that we expect to be fighting for this later in this race. Micah Hendricks goes through. Speaking of success in a Veloster, Hendricks running the Veloster this season. And he ran it for part of last season too. Just one of those people that's able to get it to work for him. James Carr on pit lane. And he pulls into his box now. Oh, he may have missed his box. That's going to cost him a couple seconds. Brian Saab is also going to decide to make his last pit stop now. With how spread out the field is, these guys don't have to worry about setting themselves back into some slow traffic or anything like that. So we're seeing the pit stops be a lot more spread out today. Overtaking is also surprisingly difficult at this circuit. The straights are long, but what that means is a lot of people are running a low downforce set. It's low drag, so the slipstream isn't as powerful. So these pit stops, really important for these guys, excuse me, to make overtakes. Ost still ahead of Kevin Clark. And now this is the Delta 1, 2, 3 that Saab has pitted. Clark, Ost, and Clark. And we'll check back in on these two because Francois Schink has he's had great pace in this one thus far. Zepka has lost that cushion he had, and Schink is now within half a second. Now, while this has been going on, Zepka has not lost any time to McKenzie ahead. McKenzie, however, almost 10 seconds off of Polasek now. So this very much looks like Polasek's race to lose. I think it has since about lap 6. Clavijo coming into pit again. This may be to go ahead and retire the car. An unfortunate way to end the race after battling for the Delta lead. But there will be more races to come. For him, for now, it's the 919 in the number 1 spot. And an 8th overall. It'd be a career best finish for Spencer Clark in both the Alpha and Delta standings. So it's been a great day for him. And he started in 19th. He's gained 11 spots since the start of this race. And he isn't even the person who's gained the most spots in the field. Christian Ost has gained 13. He started back in 22nd. Ost hasn't been able to make any inroads on Clark's lead. Clark on the last lap was 1 full second faster than Ost. And now Ost a little slow out of turn 4. And he's going to allow Kevin Clark to get back into this fight. And Jason Breen, as he has all day, is kind of sitting back there looking for a way through as people battle up ahead of him. And still nothing to take advantage of. And Zepka barely missing the pit wall there. That was cutting it close. But he stays in P3 for now. Just because these guys are teammates does not mean they won't be fighting. There's nobody close ahead, nobody close behind. So they, once we get inside of 10 minutes, I'm sure these guys will be free to scrap as they please. James Carr has come out of the pits. He's behind Brian Sohn. So he's working through a little bit of traffic, having pitted early for his last pit stop. And goes to the inside there now. He might have the run there as they come up to the Senna S. Into turn number 1. Later on the brakes, car goes through. And that continues a roller coaster ride of a day for Carr, who's started in 10th, dropped to 21st, and is now all the way back up in 12th. And I think he's on for probably a 7th or 6th place finish. It's looking very good for him after everything that has happened. Nothing to complain about there. Ost still ahead of Kevin Clark and Jason Breen. 17 minutes left in this affair. I'm not sure. I think that was Ost flashing his lights. Just saying hello to us, hello to the broadcast. I'm sure that's what he was doing. This is the closest battle on track right now. We are still waiting to see what the gap between Jacob Wiley and Spencer Clark looks like. Jacob, if we look up to Spencer Clark, Jacob Wiley is currently 19 seconds off of him, as we see Hendricks make a pass on Jason Lynn there to get up into 16th. Yeah, Clark, 19 seconds ahead of Wiley. He has been faster than Wiley for the most part. And now look at this. Ost made a mistake out of the final corner. Clark goes through. Breen goes through. That's how easy it is to lose those spots in this race. Is just a small mistake, and then you have a gigantic straightaway where you have a very long time to think about your mistake. But Breen's trying to get a 2-for-1 deal here. Around the out. Oh, no! Oh, my God! He was just... Ost was not expecting them to slow up that much, I think. And he cue balls Breen into Kevin Clark. And Brian Son's going to go through. Breen has to retire off of that. Heavy damage to the rear of his Elantra. So a late race, just calamity. Christian Ost, though he may have run into the back of Breen there, is probably also thinking, man, it's very lucky that I haven't pitted yet. Hopefully, he's still got that fast repair. Kevin Clark, let's go on board with Brian Son and look at the damage. Clark's car actually looks unscathed. This is amazing. Clark has gotten off pretty scot-free here. So that has played out well for him. And I think, Jacob Wiley running slower laps than Spencer Clark. The rest of Spencer Clark's rivals just, of course, sort of self-immolated behind him. Spencer Clark has never won a Delta race. 14 minutes to go here in Interlagos. Michael Polasek currently on for his third victory of the season ahead of teammate Logan McKenzie, who has the other two. Zepka still ahead of teammate Schink. A lot of these guys waiting on the last set of pit stops. And Ost, as expected, he comes in to get the front end damage fixed. Kyle Murray's going to come in for his last pit stop. Jason Lynn is also on pit lane. And everyone else stays out. McKenzie and Zepka are doing basically identical lap times right now. And they have been for about the last 10 minutes. But it's such a gap that Zepka's only looking behind. And Shink's dropped off a little bit. And Shink's going to go for a pit stop. He's going to go for a little undercut on his teammate. How often do we see the undercut work? Let's see. He had a 6/10 gap. He was 6/10 behind Zepka when he came down pit road. Oh, he missed his stall. That is the second or third time we've seen someone do that today. And that might be a little reprieve for his teammate. So aside from that, the next closest battle on track, Kevin Clark, Brian Son. The field has gotten very spread out today. Very diverse levels of skill in relation to this track. It can be difficult for people to pick up and learn, and there's a huge skill ceiling. And oh no, Jimmy John has had an incident coming onto pit road, and he's parked it backwards. Uh-oh. Nope. He's got it. He's got it. He's got it. How did that happen? I have never seen a car parked backwards up like that on pit lane. And then he's going to take tires. Might as well. He probably did some damage to them when he spun around. Michael Polasek, our leader, is on pit road right there. And Logan McKenzie will not be following him onto pit lane. He saved an extra lap of fuel, so he's going to pick up that bonus point to for at least leading one lap. Zepka, Bauer, Lazan, the rest of the leaders are all wrapping up their final stop on this lap. Oh no! Zepka missed his pit stall too! And he missed it by more than Francois Schink. Look at this. Oh, Schink's... It's going to be close. Zepka's out of his stall. And now coming off the Senna S, round turn number 3, the teammates are going to be neck and neck. Both of them missed their stalls, and as a result, both of them end up wheel to wheel coming down to turn number 4. It's just like... It is just like Verstappen and Hamilton at Monza. Both of them make a mistake on pit lane, and as a result, both of them just end up right back where they were. Right next to each other. The Delta leader, Spencer Clark, on pit road. Micah Hendricks on pit lane. "10 minutes to go at Interlagos. We still don't know who our Delta winner is going to be, because Jacob Wally, despite being quite a bit slower than Clark on a couple of those laps throughout that stint, he gains so much time on the undercut that he's only a second off of Clark. This is very much still on. He is close enough to start applying pressure to the 919 driver. All you need is a good lap or two. If he makes one mistake, 2 mistakes, suddenly it starts to look pretty good. Wiley putting a lot of steering angle into the wheel there. Now into the next corner, just trying to carry as much of the speed as possible. Clark, about the same exact pace as him through that sector. Oh, but much better onto the straightaway. Clark gained over a 10th on him on that corner exit. Damon Mitchell coming down pit lane now. One of the last takers. Him and McKenzie, I believe, came in on this lap. Actually, Mitchell may have saved an extra lap. He's coming off pit road now. These guys will be kind of close to him, but he will come out ahead of them. Clark going a little wide there at the apex. And now it's only an 0.8 gap. Eight minutes to go. The laps are a minute 45, minute 44. So we will see about 5 more laps in this race. Depends on where the leader is. The leader's about to come around and start another lap now. We'll be doing another 34 or 35 laps. We haven't jumped back to this little grouping in a while, but Brian Sun and Kevin Clark still dueling for that 4th spot in class. Now that they've pitted, it's Brian Saab who has come out well ahead of them. He won out on that undercut, and we've seen that undercut actually work here, unlike most other places today. Brian Saab benefited. Francois Schink benefited. James Carr came back out in 7th. You could say it certainly didn't hurt him. Jacob Wiley certainly benefited. I mean, it's worked out great for a few of these guys. And both of these guys, Son and Clark, they're not that far ahead of Micah Hendricks. Hendricks could very easily catch both of them by the end of this race. He's running a second faster, so he is on pace to get to them. But getting past them will be another deal. Zepka is now under pressure from his teammate, and now he is in trouble, going very wide of that corner. Not much of a defensive effort there as Shink goes through. He's looking for a little over-under there, over the curb. And this has been, though Zepka is falling off the podium here, it's been a part of a great run of form for him. We'll jump back to the B4G drivers battling. Now, as we get to the end of the race, everyone's decided it's time to fight. Bauer on the outside, his teammate John Lazan on the inside. Nobody around them. This for top 5. Through the final corner, Lazan's going to have that outside line. Going through here 2 by 2. Tough to know who's going to get the better run. And it's about equal. Oh, they're going to touch? Almost. The teammates almost come together. Into turn 1, who's going to be the last of the late breakers? John's the later on the brakes, but only by a bit. It's perfectly judged. Can he hold it at the bottom of the S? Yes, he can. John Lazan holds P4. Or P5, excuse me. It's Shink and Zepka up front battling for 3 and 4. Bauer's not done yet, though. Back to the inside for turn 4. Not able to beat Lazan on the brakes, but he's able to force him off his line enough to let him in, and they're going to go at it again. Here we go to turn 6. Oh, Bauer does a good job of keeping his momentum around the outside. But this is a good look for Lazan, and he's going to be able to finish that off. So now we'll jump back to this little group of 3. Son, Clark, Hendricks. This is the battle for 12th in the field. And will Hendricks go for a move on Kevin? Yes! Oh no, it's a late move, and he's into the concrete barrier. Oh no, I feel like we have seen that move from Micah before. It's shades of Okayama for the number 1 car. And Clark was battling for a podium for a very long time. His day may have just ended. Hendricks, after such a good climb through the field, he's losing several positions here as he just doesn't want to pass Clark. Lazan and Bauer still going at it. Lazan on the inside. Sticks it to the apex. Keeps Bauer behind. But Bauer keeps getting runs at him. Spencer Clark has lost Jacob Wiley. He's 2 seconds ahead, and he's actually caught Damon Mitchell in the Delta leader trying to pass an Alpha class car before the end of this race, and Mitchell throwing the defensive line on. They're battling for points. Every position counts. Mitchell's not been able to get that Audi to turn on for him at all today. And now Lazan and Bauer going at it again. Lazan's on the outside of turn 6 this time. Oh, but he does a better job of than Bauer of holding it around the outside. So for the next corner, he has a bit of an advantage. But if he can't clear him, then it's going to go to Bauer. So through the right-hander now. Oh, there's a little bit of teammate contact, a little bit of net code. And that's going to help Bauer just edge him out there. And they swap positions again. Bauer really attacking that apex. You could see him whip the car around there. Micah Hendricks went through pit road and is now coming off pit lane now. Damon Mitchell defending against Spencer Clark here. Michael Polasek, when he comes around next time by, it will be the white flag. So lap 35 will be the final lap of the race. Through turn 1, Shink stays ahead of his teammate. We still don't know who's going to be the final car on the Alpha podium. It looks like everything else is wrapped up, assuming no more major mistakes. We've seen some heartache in this race. But so far, Schink managing to hold that. A minute 20 left. Michael Polasek coming down to the final corner before the front straightaway. It's been a pretty flawless race from him. He comes around to take the white flag. And he is perfectly set up for what would be his 5th career victory in the series. 3rd this season. But a nearly a 14-second gap on McKenzie set up over the course of an hour. It's just relentless pace. It truly is. And while he sits up there, McKenzie P2, Schink P3, holding Zepka back. Bauer's still ahead of Luzon, and that's a little bit of a gap now, half a second. The white flag is out. Clark's still working on Mitchell, but he's actually part of the, part of what's happening here is Wiley is catching up. He gained 7/10 on that last lap. If I were Clark, I would actually start thinking about just chilling. Because battling may slow them down enough to let Jacob Wiley back into this. So they'll come around to pick up the white flag. Will Spencer Clark pick up his 1st career Delta victory? Will Jacob Wiley pick up his 3rd of the season? 1 minute and 45 seconds left to find out. Schink only 2/10 up on Zepka, but he's stayed ahead of him through the parts of the track where it's easiest to overtake. Clark's looking for something here. He follows Mitchell down to the inside of the track, jumps out, and goes all the way out to the outside to get that good run in. He's going to go for maybe a crossover move. Out. He goes off track a little bit. Mitchell did a good job of carrying the momentum across the inside line. Just well done. And it's also well done for Michael Polasek. He wins at Interlagos. It's his 3rd victory of the season. It's another 1-2 finish for him and McKenzie and Yellow Flag Motorsports. Schink stays ahead of his teammate Matt Zepka to finish off the podium in the Alpha class. Spencer Clark still behind Damon Mitchell. Jacob Wiley is now 9/10 back. We all eagerly await to see if Clark can just manage this. I think he's going to be able to do it. Off of the final corner, Spencer Clark in the 919 car. He's gonna pull it off. He may not have beaten Damon Mitchell, but it doesn't matter. He beat everyone else in the Delta class, and he wins at Interlagos. It's a great victory for him. And as an independent, he has just made himself one of the, I'm sure, most highly sought after independents on the grid with that win. He's had a couple of great finishes thus far this season, but that's certainly his best performance yet. P9 overall, P10 overall for Jacob Wiley. A great bundle of points for him after drop weeks are implemented in the points. I'm almost certain he will continue to be the Delta leader in the championship. And Brian Saab, after everything that happened in that race, is able to score P3 and stay in this championship fight. And it's a great day for him. He started in 20th overall, managed to come home in 11th overall. Brian Son, P4 in the Delta class. Kyle Murray, P5 in the Delta class. After all the chaos in the last 20 minutes or so, he got promoted quite a few spots, and really nothing to complain about there for him. Brandon Shelton with what I believe is a career best 18th place finish. 13 spots gained in this race for him. He and August Blondahl gained more spots than anyone else in this race, 13. James Carr only gained 3 spots in this race after starting 11th, but that doesn't really tell the full story because he was in 21st at one point. a lot of chaos over the course of a full hour, and we will wrap it all up and come back to you with the final results from today's race. "60 minutes of racing in the books in Brazil." Let's take a look at our final race results. And now let's take a look at your updated championship standings. And a look at the Delta class. Now, the team standings. And finally, the Delta class team standings. That's it from Interlagos. Thank you for watching an hour of exciting racing here at the Alpha Touring Challenge. Next week, Road Atlanta. We'll see you there. Good night.